At the hospital, everything became a whirlwind. The medical team rushed into the emergency room, their footsteps rapid, their voices clipped yet heavy with urgency. "Body temperature's too low, get the heater ready!" 4 lines were inserted, warm blankets wrapped tightly, and an oxygen tube placed in the tiny nose. A young nurse, her eyes red and teary, whispered to a colleague, "It's so small, how could it survive that cold?" The team worked tirelessly, each second passing like a weighty verdict. In the waiting room, Emma sat quietly on a chair, clutching a cup of hot cocoa offered by a kind nurse. The warmth seeped into her numb fingers, but she didn't drink, her gaze fixed on the emergency room doors. Rex lay at her feet, his head resting against her, his steady breathing a quiet comfort. Hours dragged on, each minute a test of fragile hope. Emma said nothing, but within her was an unspoken prayer. "Please live!" Rex occasionally lifted his head, gently licking her hand, as if sensing her worry. As the first light of dawn broke through the hospital windows, a doctor emerged, his face weary but his eyes alight with a spark of hope. He knelt before Emma, his voice soft. "It's stable now, little one. It was touch and go, but it's stronger than we thought. You saved its life." Emma looked up, her eyes welling with tears, her lips trembling in disbelief. A single tear rolled down her cheek, landing on Rex's fur. She gave a faint nod, her shoulders relaxing for the first time in that long night. News of the rescue spread like wildfire. By midday, reporters gathered outside the hospital, cameras capturing the image of tiny Emma and proud Rex. Headlines flooded the papers. 5-year-old girl and loyal dog save baby in blizzard. Social media erupted with praise. People from far and wide sent well wishes, donations of clothes and food, and heartfelt messages. One person wrote, "I cried reading this. A homeless girl, a lost dog, and they pulled off a miracle." Yet amid all the attention, Emma remained silent, her small hand resting on Rex's head, her eyes distant as if she couldn't yet grasp what had happened. Far from the hospital, in a cozy little apartment, James Miller sat at the kitchen table, scrolling through the morning news on his phone. A seasoned police officer, he'd seen his share of heartbreaking tales, but one headline stopped him cold. "Brave girl and dog save baby in blizzard." Reading on, he saw the name Emma, a 5-year-old homeless girl, and a German shepherd. When the photo loaded, Rex lying beside Emma in the hospital waiting room, James's heart seemed to stop. "Safia," he called, his voice breaking, his trembling hand pointing at the screen. Sophia, his wife, stepped over, covering her mouth as she recognized Rex, their dog, their companion through years of life, lost in a blizzard days earlier. James recalled that fateful night. He'd taken Rex out as an old habit, despite his retirement. A loud bang from a nearby construction site had spooked Rex, snapping his leash as he bolted into the snowy darkness. James had chased after him, shouting his name until his throat burned, but only the wind answered. Sophia had wept for hours, clutching Rex's collar, praying he'd survive. And now, Rex wasn't just alive, he'd saved 2 young lives. "We have to go," James said, his tone resolute, grabbing his coat and heading for the door, Sophia following with tears streaming down her face. At the hospital, staff led them to the waiting room. There sat Emma, small and fragile, holding her tattered cloth doll, with Rex beside her, his head resting on her legs. When Rex looked up and saw James and Sophia, his eyes lit up, his tail wagging weakly. He rose slowly, stepping toward them, nuzzling James's chest with a soft, emotional whimper. James knelt, wrapping Rex in a tight embrace, tears falling onto his damp fur. "You did it, Rex. You're incredible." Sophia knelt beside them, stroking Rex, sobbing. "We thought we'd lost you forever." But as James looked up and saw Emma sitting alone, a pang shot through his heart. That tiny girl, with her far-off eyes and trembling hands, seemed a lost figure in the vast world. He exchanged a glance with Sophia, and they both knew the story wasn't over. He approached, kneeling before Emma, his voice gentle. "Hi, Emma. You're so brave. Rex is our family, but it feels like you are too." Sophia smiled, resting a hand on Emma's shoulder. You saved the baby, and Rex too. You've got a big heart, sweetheart. Emma looked up, her wide eyes meeting theirs, wary yet flickering with hope. James continued, Would you like to come home with us? A real home, warm, no more cold nights. You and Rex can stay with us forever. Emma stayed silent, clutching her doll, then glanced at Rex. He nudged her gently with his nose, as if saying, They're safe. A tear traced down her cheek, and she nodded, so slight it was almost imperceptible. The adoption process moved quickly. James and Sophia also chose to adopt the newborn, named Liam, Light, by the nurses, a tribute to the hope he embodied. Weeks later, on a warm spring afternoon, sunlight filtered through the park's trees as James and Sophia held hands with Emma and Liam, Rex bounding nearby. Emma's clear laughter rang out like a bell as she played with Liam on the grass. Rex settled down, his brown eyes softly watching his new family, content with the journey's end. From that freezing winter night, 3 lives, Emma, Rex, and Liam, that might have faded into the snow found each other, bound by love, loyalty, and silent courage. James and Sophia didn't just reclaim Rex, they gained the family they'd always dreamed of. Emma found a home, Liam a future, and Rex, with his steadfast heart, became their guardian. Their story stands as proof that, amid darkness and cold, a heart can still bloom in ways no one could predict. Months later, on a radiant spring afternoon, sunlight pierced the park's canopy, casting shimmering patches onto the lush grass. James and Sophia held hands, smiling as Emma darted around with Liam, her pure laughter echoing like a song of joy. Liam, now a chubby toddler, took wobbly steps, his tiny hands reaching for Emma with unwavering trust. Rex lay still on the grass, his gentle brown eyes following every moment, his thick fur gleaming once more, a testament to days filled with care. Yet in Rex's gaze lingered a secret, a story only he knew. That icy winter night wasn't just a family's beginning, it was fate's whisper. From the dark alley where Liam's tiny heart nearly stopped, to Rex's desperate barks ringing through the blizzard, to Emma's trembling hands clinging to life, all wove into a symphony of hearts that refused to yield. James bent down, resting a hand on Rex's head, murmuring, You brought them to us, didn't you? Rex tilted his head, replying with a meaningful silence. As the sun dipped low, painting the sky in brilliant orange, Emma ran to Rex, her small arms wrapping tightly around his fur. Thank you, she said, her voice clear yet brimming with deep gratitude. Liam giggled, tumbling into Sophia's lap, while James stood quietly, feeling his heart beat stronger than ever. They hadn't just found each other that winter night, they'd uncovered a greater truth: a heart, no matter how small or wounded, can light up the world when loved. And somewhere in the sprawling city, on streets now free of snow, the tale of 3 lost hearts lived on, a flame that never died. They say that on quiet winter nights, if you listen closely, you can hear Rex's echoing barks, Liam's faint cries, and Emma's small but steady voice, sounds that awaken countless other hearts, a reminder that love and loyalty can pierce any darkness. The little family walked beneath the sunset, their shadows stretching long across the ground, a promise that from now on, none of their hearts would ever face loneliness again. It all began at that fateful moment. James could never forget that morning when he stepped into Emily's room to wake her up. Instead of the radiant smile that usually greeted him like a daily burst of light, he found her lying motionless, her skin pale and cold. His heart seemed to stop, his hope shattering as he called her name with no response. The paramedics arrived quickly, trying every method to revive her, but in the end, the doctor only shook his head sadly. We did everything we could. Tests confirmed it. Emily was gone, no trace of light left behind. Pastor Williams, with gentle eyes and a voice heavy from bearing too much sorrow, stepped forward, whispering words of comfort about hope in the afterlife, but they drifted past James like shadows, unable to reignite the light in his heart. The funeral ceremony passed in stifling silence. Final prayers echoed, and one by one, people placed flowers on the coffin as a farewell to the little girl, their tiny beacon of light. The air hung heavy with loss until an unexpected sound tore through the stillness. The crowd turned, startled by the sight of a German shepherd charging through the cemetery gate. Its shaggy fur was disheveled, but its eyes blazed like a light piercing the fog. Max moved swiftly, like a gust of wind, carrying the strength of a heart that never stopped beating with hope. "Max! Stop!" Officer Ryan Bennett, a seasoned K-9 trainer, shouted, but his command fell on deaf ears as the dog raced forward, as if chasing an invisible ray of light. Max didn't stop. He dodged grasping hands, weaving through the stunned crowd, and with a powerful leap, he stood tall atop Emily's small white coffin. All eyes locked onto Max, the town's finest K-9, renowned for his keen instincts and a loyal heart that shone like a guiding light in the darkness. But today, Max was different. He wasn't frantic or destructive, he was alert, ears pricked, body taut, his breathing rapid like the pulse of a heart brimming with hope, as if he knew something no one else could see. The crowd buzzed, whispers of questions rippling through. "What's going on?" A low growl rumbled from Max's throat, not aggressive, but a warning from the depths of his heart, like a light cutting through the night. "Get that dog down!" a man yelled, his voice thick with anger. Bennett lunged forward, reaching for Max's harness, sweat beading on his brow from the tension. But before he could touch him, Max whipped his head around, baring his teeth at his trainer, an unprecedented act. The air grew taut, as if the light of truth was about to burst forth. At the edge of the crowd, Jack Morgan, a weathered ex-army medic in a worn leather jacket, stepped forward. His sharp eyes flickered with a spark of hope as he observed Max. Jack had worked with medical detection dogs during the war, where their hearts were beacons of light guiding through the thin line between life and death. He recognized Max's stance, ears up, body taut, eyes focused, not grief, but alarm. His heart raced as a hunch surged within him like a ray of light piercing the darkness. "Something's wrong!" Jack shouted, his voice cutting like a blade. "Open the coffin now!" The crowd erupted in protest. "This is a funeral, are you out of your mind?" an elderly woman sobbed. "Let her rest in peace," another snapped. But Jack stood firm, his gaze locked on Max, the K-9 standing like a guiding light, igniting hope in him that life might still linger. Max remained still, his body tense like a drawn bow, emitting sharp whines from a heart full of urgency, not cries of loss, but calls of hope, like a light that refused to fade. He wasn't just guarding, he was protecting a miracle. Beside the coffin, James Carter was drowning in grief, barely registering the chaos. For days, his heart had been trapped in darkness, left with only vague condolences and the haunting image of the white coffin invading his dreams. He had spent hours by the coffin, whispering apologies to Emily, the light he'd sworn to protect with all his heart. But now, a faint glimmer of hope flickered through the fog of his sorrow. Jack stepped forward, his voice hard as steel. "This dog doesn't make mistakes. I've seen dogs like him bring light to the darkest places." He looked at Bennett, who had trained Max from a pup, pouring his heart and hope into the dog through countless missions. "You know Max better than anyone. Has he ever been wrong?" Bennett stood silent, his fists clenched, then answered, "Never." He knew Max's instincts, honed over hundreds of hours, were a sharper light than human eyes. But this, a spark of hope at a funeral, was beyond belief, defying all reason. Yet Max stood unwavering, his paws pressing into the coffin, breaths rapid, golden eyes fixed on James as if pleading. James looked up, his tear-blurred eyes meeting Max's, and in that moment, a spark of light flared in his heart, rekindling the hope that had died. "What if," he whispered, his voice hoarse from a broken heart, "what if he's right?" He turned to the funeral director, whose face had gone pale. "Open the coffin." "Mr. Carter, I can't, she's my daughter!" James roared, the pain in his heart igniting a blaze of determination. "Open it now!" His words rang out like an undeniable command, silencing the crowd. Police Chief Michael Grayson, stern and composed, stepped forward and nodded to Bennett. "Do it!" Bennett took a deep breath, his trembling hands unlatching the coffin. As the lid cracked open, Max let out a fierce whine, claws scraping the wood as if trying to pry it free himself. Jack and Bennett lifted the lid together, and when it fully opened, a collective gasp echoed. James's heart stopped, then thundered back to life. Inside, amid the satin lining, Emily's chest rose and fell faintly. She was breathing. She was alive. The light of hope blazed in James's eyes, banishing the darkness that had engulfed him. The crowd fell silent, then erupted in whispers like breaking waves. James rushed forward, trembling hands touching Emily's face, feeling the faint warmth of her skin, the light he thought he'd lost. "Emily, my girl!" he choked out, tears falling from a heart newly reignited with hope. The story traced back 3 years, when an accident took James's wife, Emily's mother, extinguishing the light in their family. Since then, he and Emily had built a tradition. Each year, they'd visit her mother's favorite trail at the base of the Appalachians, bringing flowers to a small stone memorial, a way to hold on to the scraps of hope left in their hearts. That morning, days before the funeral, Emily had insisted on picking dandelions. "They're tough, Daddy," she'd said, her eyes shining like beams of light. "They grow anywhere, like me, like Mommy said." Her heart brimmed with hope, and James smiled, checking her medical bag, meds, helmet, before they set out. The fresh forest air surrounded them as Emily ran ahead, golden hair bouncing like rays of light. Then she stopped. "Daddy, do you hear that?" James heard only the wind, but Emily, with her keen heart and a spark of hope in her eyes, followed an unseen sound. When James caught up, Emily was kneeling by a fallen log, whispering, "Don't be scared, we'll help you." Beneath the log was a trembling German shepherd pup, Max, fur-matted with mud, leg broken, body marked with circular burns like traces of a nightmare. With a veterinarian's heart and a flicker of hope, James lifted the pup. Max didn't resist, only gazed at Emily as if seeing a saving light. "Daddy, we have to save him," Emily said, her voice firm from her small, determined heart. They brought Max home, and from then on, he became an inseparable part of the Carter family. In the weeks that followed, James tended to Max with devotion, bandaging his leg, cleaning his burns, feeding him soft food to restore his strength. But it was Emily who truly healed Max, her light shining through. Despite her own frailty from childhood seizures, she never missed a day by his side. She brought picture books, sat by his makeshift crate, and read aloud. "You'll get better, Max, like me." Her heart burned with hope, and it spread to Max. James watched from afar, sensing the bond between their hearts, a light beyond explanation. Max recovered, his leg healed, his fur grew sleek, and his eyes glowed with the light of life. Then came the miracle. One peaceful afternoon, as Emily played with Max in the yard, she stiffened, a sign of a seizure. Before James could reach her, Max sprang forward, barking loudly from a heart full of concern, pressing his body against hers as if to shield her. When Emily fell, Max howled, his cry echoing like a light piercing the dark. From then on, he warned of every seizure, offering hope that Emily could live safer. Doctors called it coincidence, but James knew it was the power of Max's loyal heart, a guiding light for them both. 6 months later, the Rivercrest Police Department called. Chief Lawson said, "James, your dog's special." James glanced at Max, whose eyes followed Emily as if her heartbeat was his everything. "He's already our light," James replied. But Lawson pressed. "We want to train him as a medical and rescue canine." James hesitated, fearing Max's absence from Emily, dreading the loss of that spark of hope in their hearts. But Emily placed her hand on Max. "Daddy, Max wants to help people. He helps me. He can bring light to others." Her pure heart and hope convinced James. Max trained with Officer Jake Reynolds, learning fast, scent detection, tracking, yet always gentle with Emily, his light never dimming. "He's got 2 hearts," Reynolds marveled. "One for the job, one for the girl." Max became a hero, and through the seasons, Emily grew stronger, each step and smile rekindling light and hope. But one day, a severe seizure struck, and Emily slipped into a coma. James's heart shattered, leading to that fateful funeral, where Max, with the light of his heart, refused to leave the coffin, reigniting hope that Emily still lived. After the coffin was opened, doctors explained Emily had fallen into a rare cataleptic state, her heartbeat so faint it went undetected. Max, with his keen heart, had seen the light of life humans missed. Emily awoke weeks later, opening her eyes to Max by her bedside, her loyal beacon of light. Max's actions inspired the Emily's Angels Foundation, bringing hope and light to desperate hearts. The miracle came from paws, a wagging tail, and a fierce heart, igniting a light that overcame darkness, forever changing their lives. This story is a testament to love, loyalty, and the power of hearts, light, and hope triumphing over adversity. If it touched you, like, share, and subscribe. Hit the bell so you don't miss tales of brave hearts, undying light, and eternal hope. Let's spread this miracle together. Paws, hearts, sparkle, light, sparkle.